Hello and a warm welcome to Pulse of Culture. I'm Salia Strzemska, and today we'll explore an extraordinary exhibition at the Zachęta National Gallery of Art entitled Spaces. The show highlights a pioneering chapter in Polish art. Long before today's immersive experiences became popular, Polish artists were already exploring space, light, sound and form in bold and innovative ways. This exhibition revisits this groundbreaking trend. And to discuss, I have Michał Jachuła, its curator, joining me right now. Hello and welcome, sir. Delighted to have you with us, of course.
Thank you for the invitation.
So what inspired the theme and title, Spaces?
The whole exhibition is inspired by the space itself. It brings together works from 60s and 70s, works exploring the theme and material of space, something what becomes the major topic of the artists who were trying to develop a new type of works. They were called environments. It was few decades before installation art appeared.
Right, so how come that Polish artists came up with that?
It was a time of freedom. In the 50s, social realism has ended, and from the beginning of 60s they could develop new ideas, experiments that were something really new and fresh. The artists were trained as painters and sculptors, but they decided to do something else, not within those traditional disciplines of art. They tried to challenge the way of exhibition making, and they had this opportunity because few spaces appeared, new institutions such as Vauxhall Gallery or Galeria Współczesna, and they offered their exhibition spaces as a place for new experiments.
Right, but at the same time, Poland was still under the communist rule. So despite all of these restrictions, you're saying that artists were pretty free to experiment.
Yes, the different situation was in the 50s when we had social realism, and the situation completely changed in the 60s. All the artists worked very consciously with the theme of space. Before 60s, it was rather the domain of architects or urban planners. In the 60s, they decided to challenge the format of exhibitions. Usually, they started new forms of collaboration also between different disciplines such as visual arts and music, for instance.
Right, I was going to ask you about that, but also architecture, right?
Yes, the architecture was also an important theme because many of visual artists collaborated with architects. First, it was more format of exhibition design, and those works designed by such architects as Stanisław Zamecznik or Oskar and Zofia Hansen were a starting point for autonomous installation art.
So let's zoom in on the exhibition itself. You have 5 different environments, 5 different spaces. What inspired that?
So each space, a reconstruction, is totally different. Each of them has own poetics and creates a completely different world. Each has a separate, very large space, so visitors can step in and enter the work from the center, actually. And it was something very typical for early environments, that the viewers became co-creators of those works. They moved in the space. They also created new ways of experiencing those works, not only in visual sense, but in many cases it was a bodily experience.
But what is the common denominator between these different rooms? Is there one?
So the common denominator is three-dimensional space. We can recognize in those works elements of paintings, sculptures, but the common denominator is also a space of experience. Movement of visitors is very important, and their physical experience within the space, which is not typical for traditional visual arts.
But also, you collected documents, right, and sort of all sorts of data that is behind certain items, certain installations. Why did you think that this was important to provide viewers with history?
So the major part of the show are 5 full-scale reconstruction, but the last room brings together a body of documents, archival documents and reference materials that show the entire spectrum of environments. It was not possible to reconstruct all the works, and this is also something very specific for early installation art, that those works are not part of museum collections, but rather they exist in form of documentation. Therefore, it was important to bring this material for the viewers and to present them in form of visual documentation, to present the full spectrum of this phenomenon of environment art, which was early stage of installation art, what we call today, including immersive installations.
I was going to ask you about that, about the sort of evolutionary trajectory of this movement. So did it sort of transition into modern day sort of installations and modern day trends, or perhaps there was a hiatus between one and the other? What happened, and how did the word get out about what the Polish artists are doing?
So technically it's the same what installation art is today, but it was called differently. It was an early stage of development of spatial works, and this phenomenon was more recognized in the 70s. Sometimes the works were called also arrangements, art arrangements, but the sense is that the viewer becomes co-creator of the work, and everything exists in three-dimensional space.
All right. I wanted to get back to the theme of using music as part of this installation. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Visual artists in the 60s and 70s, they incorporated into their works different elements that were not popular a decade before, and those elements were sound, color, projections, moving image, sometimes architecture itself. And this was something also new for early installation art, that they worked in a full scale, and they also brought into the work different elements sometimes from everyday reality, also like ready objects.
Right, and I wanted to sort of zoom in on this particular installation, a cooperation between Kelm and Krause. So can you tell us a bit more about this particular installation? Because it uses music, right?
Yeah, so the installation made by Teresa Kelm and Zygmunt Krause from 1970 is one of the most spectacular and immersive works in this show. The architect Teresa Kelm was responsible for creating the space of this work, and Zygmunt Krause is responsible for musical composition. The viewer becomes co-creator of the work because viewer is moving around 5 different modules, and he can create a new experience based on the color, and also he has control on the music.
Right, I mean, hence this immersive, right, experience. How was this trend received back in the 60s and 70s, initially?
It was recognized as something definitely new, experimental. Maybe it was not well understood at that time, but few decades later it was recognized as something really experimental that challenged also contemporary art.
So did these artists stick to what they were doing, or did they sort of try and pursue different forms of art, you know, sort of knowing that initially it was not well received?
I think they continued their experimentation and search for new methods of developing three-dimensional art. At the same time, some of them were working still in traditional media, such as paintings and 70s, but at the moment when they could develop those works, it was something really new, and they had opportunities, conditions, and it's also something specific for contemporary art, when artists don't want to make another work the same as they did before, but they try to do something new.
Absolutely, and one of the people who was a part of this movement was Wojciech Fangor, who is well recognized and known nowadays. However, his exhibition from 1958, The Study of Space, was not that well received, right? I believe that he had to explain what he meant by what was shown.
Yeah, The Study of Space is a collaboration between Wojciech Fangor and Stanisław Zamecznik. The work was made in 1958. It's true that the work was not well received, but few decades later it was recognized as the first example of environment in Polish art, something that we call today installation art.
Right, so art is for the patient. But let me ask you about the sort of feminist angle, because it's quite visible, quite pronounced at this exhibition.
One reconstruction of the work is a piece by Maria Pinińska-Bereś. It is a reconstruction of her work from 1973 from Galeria Współczesna. It was the second solo show of Maria Pinińska-Bereś. Within this show, she worked with feminist concept, but also with three-dimensional space. From late 60s, she developed feminist sculptures incorporating parts of female body, and in 1973 she arranged those pieces in form of a spatial composition, and it is important that they are presented together, and what they do together within one space considered as one work, and also at the same time exhibition as a medium.
And what about performance art? Because you do showcase videos, right? Archival videos of performances. So how important was that?
So in the last room we are presenting three video documentations, and those works developed in the 60s were called as musical spatial performances. It is also important to bring to this context performance art and engagement within the space of people who can interfere with the artworks and treat them as music instruments.
Are Polish artists recognized abroad for creating this movement, for giving rise to this trend, or not?
Environment was part of international art. There are very famous artists recognized as pioneers of environment in the West. In Poland, we had also very interesting and early examples of this thinking, but those works are not so well recognized internationally, unfortunately, but maybe spaces will change this position.
Absolutely, let's hope so. Fingers crossed. Michał, Jachuła, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching Pulse of Culture. Please stay tuned for more here on TVP World.